only way to do this work was not by reading the book alone, but just as Nadia and I had worked together, in a way we felt we were modeling what we wanted our readers to do. Because although this is an intensely intimate process of listening to one's inner guidance, that doing it with someone else is an immensely enriching experience for ourselves as well as for the relationship between the two of us. So, with that, I think that we recognized that was the first step to becoming a sage, to actually enter into this conversation. We wanted everyone, like women in the 70s in CR groups, consciousness raising, to get together and speak the truth of this moment that wasn't being spoken outside. So what we're hoping is that we'll begin to see a movement of people sitting around together and speaking about the reality, the challenges, and also the remarkable gifts that come from aging. And if we don't take this step, you can be sure that as you witness your physical and cognitive decline without looking at what you have now that you could never have before, aging will be tragedy. So thank you all for being here today. And with that, I am now going to introduce my dear friend and teacher, Sylvia Boorstein, who will speak to some, in the new edition that we created, we have a new chapter, Pandemic Wisdom, because we believe for all of us, of all ages, this moment in time has been a game changer, just as my friendship with Sylvia has been a game changer for me. So Sylvia, I want to leave you plenty of time for your wisdom and invite you to join us now.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I feel honored. Shana Tova to everybody. It's fast upon us. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to put back on the gallery view. I don't want to look at me. I want to look at all of you. That's much better. Okay. I like that much better. There's been so much of being on Zoom in these last several years. And I've discovered that it's fine for me as long as I'm looking at a lot of people. And I've gotten used to not thinking of the people in their boxes. I'm thinking about the people in their homes. And I've been more and more grateful for everybody who's invited me into their home to see them at home and to talk. And when Malka invited me, I was happy to do it because I've known Malka a long time and I love her, because I knew Reb Zalman well enough to call him both my teacher and my friend. And I'm very grateful for that. And I love being asked to talk about being old because I'm learning how to do it. When I teach these days, and I teach when I go to talk to a new group of people who don't know me, about something about Dharma, about something about mindfulness and what does it mean and how is it interpolated into Judaism, and it's interpolated into everything actually. And I always find a way to say somewhere in whatever presentation I'm doing, usually more near the beginning than the end, I like to say I'm 86 years old, right straight off, because one of my things is I'm eager to counteract any kind of a thing about ageism. I get happy when the calendar turns and I have another year. First of all, thank God I have another year, but also I have a chance to deconstruct that, oh, a woman never tells her age or da 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 da. I'm 86 years old and my husband died 18 months ago. And I miss him a lot, but I feel very blessed to have had a long lifetime with him. So that immediately, I think, resonates with everybody who either has done that or is getting ready to do that and is willing to talk with other people who want to talk about how is it to come to that part of life. You know, that all of this, I was talking to a number of people this morning where we were laughing, it's not funny, about how many people in our close sphere of people that we know, I see, are having difficulties with their body and difficulties in their mind. And I want to make it all right to talk about that. I really feel like to just make it out there and talk about it. Just as Malcolm was saying a little bit ago, talk about what are you doing about your body that's aging? What are you doing about your health and your this and your that? Actually, I just into my mind popped my grandmother, who I always credit with being my first really spiritual teacher. My grandmother was my primary caretaker when I was a baby and a preschool child, because my parents, living in Brooklyn, children of immigrants, uh, needed to be going to work every day. And I was, first of all, I learned Yiddish, and second of all, I was privy to my grandmother's way of seeing things. And I would hear her say to somebody who would ask, for instance, a question, "How are you, Leah?" And she'd say, "Oh, well, my bursitis in my shoulder is acting up a little bit, and I'm having a little trouble with the digestion, and the sleeping is not so good. And my nephew in Sarasota, I haven't heard from him for a while, so I'm worried about it. But I myself, I'm okay." That was the lesson, that somehow I actually started to cry right away. That there's an I myself that can be okay with all of that stuff. My shoulder is no good, my stomach, and I'm anxious about my nephew, but I myself am okay. That's what I want to be able to say about myself. I myself, this doesn't work so well, and that doesn't work so well, but I myself am okay. And even past that, I myself am grateful. Malka mentioned about the pandemic and pandemic wisdom. And the pandemic was, of course, awful, and so many people died. And it's not maybe all finished, and who knows what it's going to be. But I learned a lot during the pandemic. Sometimes people say, asking about an experience, and they say, well, what I learned from my first heart attack, and you know that it's about something that wasn't good. But I actually did learn. People said, what new insights did you have? And I really was clear about it. I said, I don't have any new insights. I had the same insights that I've really been thinking about and teaching about for 40 years. The insights about today is the only day we have today. You don't get to do today over again. Everything is disappearing. Gamze Yavor, this will also pass. Everything is going to pass. This moment is going to pass. This wonderful, pleasant moment is going to pass. This disagreeable moment is going to pass. Really, I think that comes out to be the bottom line wisdom that we can rest in. We can make efforts. We can do this. We can do that. But bottom line, this is the only moment in which we can act. We have the possibility of acting on behalf of our own well-being and other people's. And everything keeps changing. I had a particular experience of the middle of the pandemic when we couldn't go out for a while and we were really quarantined at home. I thought it was like being on a meditation retreat. Didn't you think so? You can't go out. You go to a meditation retreat, they tell you, okay, no going out, no calling up. We could phone people, but no phoning, no going out. A more simple diet, because you couldn't shop and you couldn't plan, you couldn't go out to eat. And I live in a particular place in Marin County where my house is surrounded by 6 or 7 people who, my house is on a little hill, and they are just up the hill up to me. And there's a path that goes down to the main road, but I don't even come out on a sidewalk. So I'm in the middle of a lot of people that I really couldn't visit with. You see and you wave, but they're a bit down from me. And I had the experience of like being on a retreat and being all by myself with my husband here. And, the people who needed to come by came by. And in the beginning of the retreat looking out, I'd see over here, these people over here got a new puppy just when the pandemic was starting. And the puppy had a puppy bark, which is, it's high. It's a high puppy squeak bark. And then as the months go by, because he turned out to be a big Labrador retriever, his little voice became a big voice, blah, blah, blah. So I could see everything passes, over here I'm having a lesson in impermanence. Over here, my neighbors have two very tall sons in their 20s who had just gotten accepted on a Spanish basketball game. So team. So they had gone to Spain. I know that they're home when I hear the bang on the backboard of the basketball hoop that's in their driveway. Because when they're home, they're always practicing on the bang, bang, bang. And I remember thinking, oh, good, they're in Spain now. They're not going to be banging on the hoop. And then immediately there was a pandemic. And I heard also from over the porch and calling out that now they couldn't get back because it was a pandemic and couldn't get on the planes. So these people are having new puppy stuff. These people over here their sons can't get out of Spain and there's a big pandemic happening there. Ultimately, they came home. So this is all to say you could just stay where you are and see everything is passing, and therefore we can manage. So the people over here, I heard also from calling down over the fence, the person who lives down there was diagnosed with a colon cancer and went to the hospital and had a surgery and came home and got better. So that was a whole, everything that arises passes away. Meantime, in my very house, my husband, who knew that he had a metastatic cancer 18 months before he died, fortunately did not have a lot of pain with it. But over the months, he kind of became more meager. He shrank and his strength was less. And it was as if he was getting smaller and smaller in front of my eyes because we were here alone together. And at the same time, my grandson's wife was pregnant with her first child, and she was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And they would come to see the grandfather frequently, and I would see him getting smaller and smaller, and this not yet arrived baby getting bigger and bigger. And it just somehow gave me the overall message that if I really looked around, everything happens and then passes and happens and passes and has always been happening in passing and will continue to happen and pass. And we're each playing our particular role in it. These people have a role of dog raiser. These people have a role of basketball player raiser. We have the role of ushering out a life and ushering in a life. And that we have the great privilege of being in it for a while and a participant in it, and to get up in the morning and think, wow, I'm alive again. I'm still got another day of this life. Let's see what happens next. I have a friend who's written a lot of books. His name is Gil Fronsdal, and he's a lovely writer about interpreting Buddhist psychology, and a very sweet man. And I always like to cite him when I talk about his definition of equanimity. And he says, equanimity is the ability to say, this is what's happening now. Let's see what happens next. I love that. That's my favorite definition, because when something happens and I get startled by it or frightened by it, somebody calls or we go to the doctor and they say, alas, you have metastatic lung cancer. You think, he said, but wait a minute, we have these treatments that we can do now that maybe will retard it. And they did for a while. And we have ways to treat it now so that it won't be horrible whenever it stops being treatable. So from the moment that we get a piece of news, we think, oh, I can't do this. The the wisdom that comes is, yeah, you can, because everybody does. Everybody's always done it, because things keep rising and passing away. Our mentors rose and passed away. In some ways, I think of Reb Zalman. I think he's hardly, I mean, he certainly has died, but he is so alive in my mind. I think about him all the time. The story that I wrote in in this new edition is a story of him staying with me. Maybe you've seen it. The story of him staying with me as a guest in our household for some reason, uh, 30 years ago, probably a long time ago. And he stayed for several days. Maybe he was between teaching things or something. And on the second day that he was here, he said to me as I was putting out the lunch on the table, um, and he said to me, "I noticed, Sarla, that you don't drink milk. Is there some reason that you don't drink milk?" So, in fact, I said, yes, as a matter of fact, I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't drink milk. Um, but, I thought to myself in the moment, if I were with someone for a day in their house and they drank a glass of chocolate milk every half hour, I might notice it. But I would not notice if they didn't drink milk. It's not like a major thing to notice, but he was a tremendous noticer. So I noticed that since yesterday you didn't drink any milk. Why is that? I'm lactose intolerant. Why did you ask? And he said, well, from jeden einem kann man etwas auslernen, which means you can learn something from everybody. And I think about him as being having the quality of curiosity more than anything else. Tell him something new. This could happen, that could happen. Want to try this psychedelic? You want to do this? You want to do that? You want to do the other? That he was open to try things and always ready to be renewed and always ready to think things over and to say things another way. And that's the message that I most take from him. And the message that I hope people are taking from whatever I'm saying now and from this book is that becoming a certain age doesn't mean it's all over. It means this is what's happening now. Let's see what happens next. That I love that. Not only can I be okay at 60 or 65, I'm going to say one more thing and then I'm going over my time, so I'll go off. When I was a child, my grandmother, who was really had poor health and was bedridden most of the time, and listened to soap operas all day long. And when I was with her, I listened. And I actually myself was a sickly child and spent a lot of time in bed listening to those same soaps. And one of the ones that I followed was a story called The Romance of Helen Trent. Is there anybody there who remembers The Romance of Helen Trent? I'm 86, so uh, I'm 86, so you have to be that old to know. But it started with a big, swell of music, and it would say, "This is the romance of Helen Trent, the story that asks the question, can a woman find romance in life at 35 or over?" So is that hysterical? Look at that. I see Nadia's whole face drops up. And Malika's laughing because 35, it was all done for you. You are an old maid. So can a woman find romance in life? Anything, anybody can find romance in life. They can find anything in life if they're looking for it. They have to be curious. What can I find today? Because, this I have today. And as you say, well, maybe I don't have too many days. You never know how many days you have. And I actually want to use mine. And I keep thinking, well, maybe I'll stop going around and talking so much and I'll just, sit under a tree and read novels. But I actually love to be able to say something that's worthwhile. So I hope I have. and Shana Tova. And thank you for inviting me. Oh, and somebody remembers me from being with Reb Zalman at Shambhala. That's a long time ago. That was a great retreat. That was lovely. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Thank you. Malka, you are muted.
I'm unmuted now.
Oh, okay,
And,
good.
Yeah, I'm going to take the opportunity to thank my wonderful teacher and friend, Sylvia Boorstein. Always, always, as somebody just wrote, what a gift to hear from you, Sylvia, always.
Well, thank you for inviting me. As you know, I am double booked and I have not yet achieved the skill of bilocation. So I have to leave.
Thank you.
If I
Thank you,
figure it out,
Shana
I'll
Tova.
come back and tell you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What a gift. What an incredible gift. So we wanted to share with you a little snippet, a little bird's eye view into what we wrote and how we wrote. And Malka and I, as I said at the beginning, we met for the most part using this technology. We had our book on a Google Doc that was open. So when we were writing, we could see one another and we wrote back and forth, but we would spend the first hour talking about it and telling our own stories and deciding where we were in this process. And then we wrote like we were having the conversation. So we're going to share with you a bit of that conversation from the beginning of our book.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Reb Nadia. I'd like to begin actually at the very, very beginning of our book where we say letting go. And we used Reb Zalman's sine qua non, the 10 essential steps to becoming an elder. And that was the structure for our book. And we provided the text and the exercises for each one of these chapters with the intention that one or two people would work together or a group over a period of 10 sessions to work through this book. And much of it includes writing. And it begins by saying taking hold of the willingness to deal with life completion and overcoming the desire to stay in the denial of aging. Then we have a quote from Trotsky that says, old age is the most unexpected of all the things that happen to a man. We write, by the time you're 60, you can't ignore the flab under your arms. The death of a parent will get your attention too. The evidence is clear. You're not going to live forever, and furthermore, you're not going to stay the same until you die. So what is there to do? Below are 4 possibilities. One is to go the way of Peter Pan and never age. Peter continues to do what he has always done in midlife and beyond. He may grow up, but he will never grow old. He cannot imagine himself any other way and is stalwart in defending himself against aging. This is not a gender-specific difficulty. These are the people whose values remain fixed. Life experience does not change their perspectives or their responses to the world around them. They do not take full responsibility for their lives, and they depend upon their charm and wit to get by. The playboy, who just wants to have fun with whatever time remains, is another response to the question we've posed. For this individual, life until now has been disappointing, difficult, and without joy. He or she may feel a haste to make up for lost time. Anything that will bring pleasure and ease becomes the chief meaning of this life. Cruise companies and sports car salesmen love them.
The third choice tries to outrun the aging process. Like the Kumeyan Sibyl, they would like to be given the gift of eternal youth. Without the blessing of the gods, they'll pay for it. Plastic surgeons, personal trainers, and other purveyors of magic youth-enhancing potions depend on them. All that matters is vigor that provides an illusion that life goes on forever. While we all possess a little bit of each of these types, our experience of aging depends upon which one we strive to become. The final choice is the only one that will bring wisdom and peace of mind, the path of the sage. Only the fourth choice has you turn toward the future with all its unknowns and changes that are underway, and embrace aging as a great spiritual adventure. The alternative is to back into old age, as our beloved teacher Reb Zalman would say. Choose Peter Pan, the Playboy, or the Sybil, and guess what? You're going to wake up one day, if you're lucky, and discover that you're an old person. Whatever you decide will shape the last third of life. So this is how we enter into this book, how we take you into your options. We hope you choose the sage. And if you do, then of course you want to read the rest of the book and do the exercises and work with a saging buddy, and develop that amazing, wonderful attitude that we just witnessed in Sylvia Boorstein. But we wanted to also give you a sense of some people, have taught using this book or used the book themselves. And we've invited our wonderful friend, Oran Hesterman, who is also a Vatik and a teacher in the Saging Legacy program, to share a little bit about the experience of teaching. And thank you so much, Oran, for being with us. Oran is a graduate of the Saging Mentorship Training Program, and he and his wife, Lucinda Kurtz, are an amazing dynamic duo who have been teaching in our program, both Wisdom of the Heart and now Death as Homecoming. And we're really grateful to you, Oran, for being here and sharing a little bit of your experience.
Well, thank you, Reb Nadja and Reb Malka, for inviting me to just share a few reflections about the work and how your book has fit into both the teaching that Lucinda and I have been doing, but also very relevant to some of what I find about my own life's journey at this moment. Very grateful for the two of you and all of our teachers, so Reb Zalman especially, and Reb Shaya and Bahira, Nadja, you and Victor, and Reb Malka, for really opening up and expanding this field of work and inviting so many of us into it so we can learn for ourselves and learn with each other. So thank you so much. I think it was really brilliant that the two of you organized the book around the sine qua non. When Lucinda and I teach the Wisdom of the Heart course, we organize it around the sine qua non, those 10 qualities or 10 aspects without which it's impossible to consider yourself on the path of spiritual aging, so spiritual eldering. So thank you so much for organizing the book like that. And in our teaching, while we don't teach 10 sessions, one with each of those aspects, we hit on all 10 of those as we're teaching the Wisdom of the Heart. And many of the exercises that we find at the end of the chapters of your book, we actually use in our courses and have used personally as well. So very helpful to have this all in one place. And while I, read the book when we first started teaching Wisdom of the Heart, and it's one of the suggested readings for the course, I took this opportunity, Nadja, when you invited me to say a few words today, to reread it. And I was just pretty astounded at how current it is for me right now in a different way than it was 2 or 3 years ago when I really first studied it for the teaching. It really is helping me forge my own path in my transition from full-time work and leadership to, rather than calling it retirement, I'm calling it rewirement. I'm definitely, rewiring myself out of full-time work and leadership at Fair Food Network, an organization that I founded almost 15 years ago and have been leading as it's been growing with a lot of staff and a lot of activities all over the country. And it's been a challenge to both figure out in my mind how to back away from this as I'm aging, and then to put a plan into place, a strategy and a plan to do this. I just wanted to read one paragraph that really jumped out at me this week when I was rereading the book. What prepares us for the final giving over with two hands is the gradual shift in roles that the third act brings. While we are not ready to leave the stage entirely, we move from center stage and take a new role. At times, we'll be cast in a supporting role, and at other times, we will simply stand in the wings, applauding those on the stage. What moves us to leave the center will be perhaps a lessening of energy. The deeper question is what motivates us to make room and behave with generosity to the next generation. Reb Zalman teaches us that when we possess the wisdom grown from living a while, it begins to bubble up from within us, and we almost involuntarily feel the call to bring blessings to others. And it just kind of amazed me when I reread that this week, how this is like happening to me in my life. You're writing about my experience as I read this. Your writing and your articulating the expansion on the sine qua non encourages us to discover our own stories and how our own stories fit into our path of life and our path of eldering. And I've thought a lot about my own story connected to my own grandfather and what an important person he was in my life, and how important it was for me to have that elder man who was sort of a buffer between me and my father in some ways, somebody to really help me understand life in a different way than my father could. And Lucinda and I now have the blessing of living close to one of our children and two of our grandchildren. And so as I interact with our now 6 and 9-year-old grandchildren, I have like a role model in some ways, a role model 2 generations ago of my own grandfather to work with. I see we do have a question about the sine qua non, so I'll wait and see. When I'm done in a couple of minutes, I'll see Nadia or Malka if you would like to respond to that, or if you'd like me to, either way. So I would just say, the point in the book when you talk about the wisdom of tasting the brevity and sweetness of life, how important that is to remind ourselves of that every day. Malka, your writing about your experience of moving from Santa Fe to California is really present with us right now. We just this summer sold our house in Ann Arbor, our big house in Ann Arbor, and moved to a much smaller place up in northern Michigan to be near our kids and grandkids. And when I read about that paragraph of your experience, I ran downstairs to Lucinda. I said, you have to read this, because what I'm hearing you talk about is really what I'm reading that Malka also went through, that the challenge of figuring out how, as we age, we're going to actually deal with all the stuff that we've accumulated through years of productive living and building, how we deal with all this as we're at a stage of harvesting that wisdom and sharing it in our lives. I'd say just two final things I want to say. One is that how rereading the book has also re-inspired me to strengthen my own efforts as what Reb Zalman called an eco-warden. I just had, at the same moment that I'm stepping back and handing over the leadership of Fair Food Network to a new generation and learning in my bones how to see this organization as my legacy rather than my responsibility, as I turn it over to this next generation and take steps back, just last week I was invited to be one of 200 people to attend in person next week the White House conference on hunger, nutrition, and health. A very unexpected invitation to be there in person. And of course I'm going to go. And I go with the notion that I'm going as a spokesperson for the earth. I'm going as a spokesperson for those who need a voice on a stage like this, and as a spokesperson for the younger generation of our organization to help them move into their leadership more powerfully. So it's an interesting moment in my own life, thinking, just working with the moment that's here and the moments that are coming. And finally, the big question that it leaves me with and leaves us all with as I reread the book, as I do the teaching in the courses, as I step as much as I can each day into my own role as an elder, the question of how each of us will answer the call of aging is the question that's really before all of us at every age. How will each of us answer the call of aging? Thank you for responding to that question so beautifully in the writing and publication of this book, to share that wisdom and your answer to that question with all of us.
Thank you, Oran. Thank you so very much for responding to our invitation to share a little bit about your experience with the book and above and beyond what we imagined. So I'm so grateful to you.
You're welcome.
There is going to be time at the end for